Hey guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome. This is going to be episode 1 of the probably 6 or 7 part series of how to do your own programming as far as powerlifting goes. Today we're not going to really get into any of the numbers as far as overload or individual differences or anything like that. We're going to be talking about probably the all-encompassing principle that changes depending on which period of training you're in, whether it's hypertrophy, strength, or peaking. And that's going to be the idea of specificity or exercise variation. So to put it in simple terms, specificity is how close to a specific lift variation you're going to be performing for your training purposes. So for instance, you could probably say for the bench press, an overhead press would be not very specific in comparison to something like a close grip bench press, which is more specific, or competition pause bench press, which is ideally the most specific for what you're doing. Now, just because something's not specific to what you're going to be doing it for training purposes doesn't mean it's not useful. So a really good example of this is if you guys have been keeping up with my training at all during my hypertrophy phase that I just finished up, is going to be the period of time where you can have the most exercise variation or the least amount of specificity. For example, I didn't do any low bar squatting throughout that whole time. I kept it high bar and front squatting, just like I didn't do any regular bench press. I kept it all close grip and no regular deadlifting, all deficit deadlifts. Mainly the purpose of this phase is because you're working through weak points and greater ranges of motion. The idea of doing more variant type lifts is going to be able to bring up in muscle mass those weak areas that you might have in your other lifts. So it's not to say that everybody should be doing deficit deadlifts like I was doing or front squats like I was doing. You could be really explosive already out of the hole and might not need any work on deficit deadlifts, and you might have really good back positioning, so you might not really have a need for front squat, for example. So variation could depend on the person. For instance, if you have a very crappy lockout, you might want to do something like rack pulls or block pulls, or maybe have some glute ham raises, I guess, thrown into your programming. The point being is once you are closer to your competition phase, so, and let's call that your peaking phase for all intents and purposes, because that's where we're going to get to eventually. That's going to be the opposite block of your hypertrophy phase. So you have hypertrophy, your strength phase, and then your peaking phase if you're doing periodized training. So your hypertrophy phase, like I said, is going to be the least specific, whereas your peaking phase is going to be the most specific. The closer you get to competition, the more specific you need your exercises to be. So a really good example of this is if you're planning on squatting 1,000 pounds like Eric Lillibridge, what type of training do you think you do prior to that? Does it really make any sense to train like a marathon runner prior to that, running 10, 15 miles a day to get ready to squat a load that much? Probably not. And honestly, it's probably not really even good for building muscle in general. Anyway, the last part of this is you have your hypertrophy phase for building the muscle itself, and then as you get closer to your competition, you're going to increase the specificity and you're going to increase load and taper down your volume a little bit. But we're going to get into that in future videos. Point is, you want to train specifically to what your goals are at the time, put in short, okay? That's really all I got on specificity today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys probably in a few days with the next video.